At the White House today, George Floyd's family met with President Biden and Vice President Harris. The president had hoped to sign the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act at that meeting, but that didn't happen. That legislation, which is designed as a comprehensive effort to hold police across the country more accountable, to end racial profiling, to change the culture of policing in America, is stalled in the Senate. It passed the House. Our congressional correspondent, Rachel Scott, has been following all this journey really since the George Floyd murder, and now this effort at changing policing in America. So, Rachel, what's the status of this bill? What's the sticking points?
The biggest sticking point, Terry, continues to be this issue of qualified immunity. This is something that gives protection to officers from lawsuits. You have some on the Republican side who have suggested maybe making it so that you can sue the police department versus suing the officer themselves. But Democrats, many of them drawing a hard line here as well. You had a group of 10 progressive Democrats that sent a letter to Democratic leadership saying that they want this eliminated in this bill, or else they are not going to vote for it at all. This continues to be one of the major sticking points, a hurdle that is keeping this bill from going forward right now, Terry.
And Rachel, you had a chance to speak with two of the main advocates for this bill inside Congress, Congresswoman Karen Bass, and outside NAACP President Derrick Johnson. What did they tell you about what they're seeing in Congress with this bill, what they hope will happen?
Yeah, the words "we're getting close" is not something that I hear a lot from both sides, Democrats and Republicans, on Capitol Hill. But I can tell you in the conversations that I've had in just the last 24 hours, there is clear momentum that is happening, even though they have now blown past this deadline. There is some clear disappointment that they couldn't get this bill on President Joe Biden's desk by May 25th, today, the anniversary of George Floyd's death. But they do say that there is progress. And what I heard from both Karen Bass and Derrick Johnson is that they want legislation that makes meaningful change. Take a listen. What does justice look like to you on a federal level and on a state level?
Well, first of all, we have to have a federal floor of accountability. A police officer badge should not be a shield from accountability, and we must enforce that. And the best way to do so is a federal floor. NAACP was created to fight against anti-lynching. And we wanted a federal floor then, 112 years ago. We need one now. Law enforcement officers who are rogue officers should not be allowed to terrorize the communities they're being paid by the communities to protect.
Congresswoman Bass, I know one of the sticking points appears to be qualified immunity on this part. Where do you see this going with negotiations? Is this something that can be resolved? Is it something that ends up being placed out of the bill?
Well, I will tell you that qualified immunity is still on the table. Qualified immunity is not off the table. Let me say that the most important thing is that we have to have a way in this country to stop the killings, to stop the brutality, and police need to be held accountable. We have 18,000 police departments in the United States, 18,000 ways policing is conducted. There needs to be national standards, national accountability, transparency, and consequences.
Do you feel like President Biden has done a good job at addressing this? We also know that he backed out of his campaign promise to create a National Police Oversight Commission.
No, I think the White House has been extremely helpful. They've not been directly involved in negotiations, but they have been there willing to provide whatever support we needed. And frankly, the idea of having a commission right now wouldn't make any sense. This president, in his inauguration speech, put white supremacy in his speech. Racial equity was one of the first things that he signed on an executive order, and part of racial equity is addressing policing in America. So I don't believe there's anything more that the president could do.
Yeah, and there you have it. Congresswoman Karen Bass, one of the lead negotiators for the Democrats, pushing back on this idea that President Joe Biden hasn't made this a priority enough. We know, as I said to her, that President Biden backed out of his campaign promise to create a National Police Oversight Commission. Today, we have not heard of any plans for him to deliver remarks, though he's meeting with George Floyd's family. And that was one of the biggest concerns that I heard from activists when I was standing exactly where you are, Terry, in Black Lives Matter Plaza. They wanted more than just the words painted on the street. They wanted more than just a symbol. They wanted some substantive change. And there has been frustration among activists that I have spoken to that not only lawmakers, but that the White House is not doing enough to make police reform more of a priority, Terry.
For sure. Legislation always a messy business, and they're still stuck in negotiations, as you tell us, Rachel. And we're well used to in this country those negotiations going nowhere with Republicans in the Senate. But this time, Senator Tim Scott, Republican of South Carolina, the only black senator, is leading the negotiations for Republicans. Are there suggestions that they're finding common ground?
Yeah, there's actually a lot of common ground here when it comes to banning chokeholds, when it comes to creating a database to monitor some of these incidents on body cameras. There is a lot of common ground between Democrats and Republicans. And you mentioned that Senator Tim Scott is the only black Republican in the Senate. He's having these negotiations with Senator Cory Booker and Congresswoman Karen Bass. This is extremely personal for all of them. All three of them have been outspoken about what it is like to be black in America, how this needs to stop. Senator Tim Scott has talked about how he gets pulled over when he is back home in his home state of South Carolina. This is a very personal issue for everyone that is involved. And I talked to Senator Tim Scott just yesterday. He says that he can see the end of the tunnel on this one. He says that a framework is starting to come together. So again, they have blown past this deadline, but it is clear that these talks are picking up momentum, Terry.
Well, let's hope so, Rachel. We've got to put our shoulders to the wheel, including the members of Congress. Rachel Scott, our congressional correspondent, thanks very much.
Thanks.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.